I mean, you put too many monkeys in a cage, something's going to start flying. Hey everybody, your buddy Basil here, and you are listening to the Joyspiracy Theory. Welcome back, and we got another awesome interview for you here. We're talking to Jeremy, and Jeremy's over in Massachusetts as well. You may have mentioned this fella. You may remember this fella was mentioned in the last episode with Caitlin there. Yeah, this is her other half. And, this was a great conversation, too. I think you guys are going to like it. A couple things to warn you about. We recorded this right in the middle of the Genesis bomb storm, crazy apocalypse snowstorm going on the East Coast there. That may or may not be over by the time this episode posts, but you get a report from the middle of the storm, which is pretty nice. The electricity stayed on the whole time. We never lost connection. You will notice about for a minute or two, right here near the beginning, there was some funny noises coming through, some crazy frequencies. We think it's probably something with the storm that was happening, but we quickly shut that down. We did a little reconnect. We just did a little live reconnect. No big deal. We're professionals here. We figure it out as we go. So if you get to a point and there's a weird noise and it starts activating your KGB sleeper cell instincts, don't worry, it's over in a few. You can just kind of skip ahead or just, power through it. You got the strength. I believe in you. You got this. Anyway, some quick housekeeping. Everybody go over to the Facebook page, facebook.com/thejoyspiracy theory. Like the page, get the updates. It's all good. Patreon.com/thejoyspiracy is a great way to support the show financially if you feel led. Okay, yep, I think that's it. thejoyspiracytheory.com. It's still there. You can go and leave me a voice message and stuff, or head over to iTunes. Leave me a rating or a review so I can read it here on the show. I know everybody's kind of skipping that, but I'm telling you, please go do that. That'll be awesome. It tells the robots to tell more people about the show, and also it just makes me feel warm and fuzzy when people write stuff there. Okay, so I think it's time to just jump in, so let's do it. Again, this is Jeremy. We're talking about, it's an interesting story. This is probably the first Joyspiracy Theory episode with the testimony told entirely through real estate. So hang in there. There's some really great stuff, and, you real estate people, you're going to enjoy this one. Okay, take it easy. Here we go. Woo.
Hello.
Hello. How's it going, buddy?
Good. How you doing?
Good. Is this Jeremy?
This is Jeremy.
Right on. I didn't call some random person. Well, before we get started, buddy, what are you grateful for today?
Oh, what am I grateful for today?
Mm-hmm.
Not having to shovel any more snow.
Yeah. Yeah, you're over there in Crazy Storm Crazy, huh?
Yep.
How's that?
Bomb Genesis or whatever they call it.
Bomb Genesis Typhoon Storm.
Yeah, it was, I don't know, earlier today, we got this huge driveway in front of the house, and it was just snowing hard, so we went out earlier. There's about 4 or 5 inches of wet, heavy snow, and we started shoveling it. I broke out the snow blower, which I was like, oh, there's no problem. And then the fuel line on the snow blower just ripped in half because it was an old fuel line.
Oh no!
And so we had to do it all by hand. And then fast forward 4 hours, we're back out there again with another 3 inches shoveling.
Oh my
So my
gosh.
back is done.
Yeah, nope, that's exhausting. I've had to shovel many a driveway in my life, and so I empathize with you, brother. I empathize. But you're our boots on the ground during the Genesis bomb crazy storm. Yeah. How are things looking out there, Jeremy?
Still got power.
Still
That's
got
a good thing.
Yeah, I'm actually was gonna say, are you running off a generator, or is the old American electrical system holding up for you?
It's old for sure, outdated. It is holding up though, which is good. we don't have a generator, but we do have a fireplace and a wood stove. And we went out last night. We bought a bunch of wood just in case, because they're saying that the chances are we're gonna lose power. But
Yeah.
we didn't, thankfully.
Yeah, and you said the snow's nice and heavy out there, huh?
Yeah, super heavy.
Yeah,
Super
it's
heavy.
only a matter of time before those power lines start going down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great for snowballs, not for shoveling.
Yep. Well, we're praying for you, buddy.
Thank you.
You hold strong. Help is on the way. Well, now that you are trapped indoors with, I guess you have electricity now, but soon that will be gone. What do you you got some fun electricity less activities planned? Maybe some Scrabble.
That's actually Scrabble's. I don't even know. We have Scrabble somewhere in the garage, I think. That's a good idea, actually.
You know what
But
the
uh,
the
other
best
than like
game?
playing guitar, but
Yeah, well, guitar, that only lasts for so long until you start driving everybody crazy. But you got to get yourself a risk game out there. You can
we
get.
got risk. Yep.
Yep, there you go.
One of my favorites.
It's emotionally taxing. It takes 8 to 10 hours to finish, and afterwards, everybody's ready for a little bit of alone time.
Yeah. Or that's actually Monopoly in my house. But.
Yeah, Monopoly is also a classic. I guess we got a little heated about Risk back in my day because we're all preoccupied with world domination. So
Right.
now I'm getting a little bit of a noise over there. Do you got some wind going on,
What kind of noise?
or is your computer power cord plugged in?
I am on my phone, which is not plugged in to
No.
avoid any ground loop.
There you go. Well, that's good. You know all the tricks. Yeah, I'm getting some like weird little thing, but it could just be the fact that it's crazy snowing over there.
That's true. I do know people in my area were losing internet and losing cable and stuff, so that could be part of it.
Okay, well, we might try a little live reconnect here because it is a tone that I expect is going to activate some like KGB sleeper cells or something. Okay, so we're going to do this live. I'm going to let you call me, okay?
Okay.
Here we go. We'll do this fast. The emergency situation. Okay, here we go. Bye. We did it. We disconnected. Hopefully other people's Oh, there we go. Okay, we got the call coming in here. Settle down, KGB sleeper agents. Whoa! It's even crazier. No, okay, there we go. Oh, it settled down a little bit.
A little bit? I could try...
Kind of sounds like, when you get a big metal sheet or a wood saw and then you shake it to make it sound like thunder?
Hold on, let me try... See, I had everything all set up to go. I had my nice mic out and all that jazz, and then I go to start up Skype, which I haven't started up in about 3 years, and they don't support my OS anymore. So, so I'm on my phone as like the desperate, last resort.
Now, do you have a microphone plugged into your phone?
Yeah, I'm just gonna see how it goes if I just use headphones and use the phone mic. So
yeah, try that. Sounds good. Oh, I think we're good.
How's that?
Oh, that's so much better.
Better?
Yeah, that was whatever you were using there. That was crazy. It sounds like you have some crazy electromagnetic fields going on over there. But whew, man, I can feel my soul settling down already.
Electromagnetic fields, nothing like in California over there, but
yeah, you got to be careful over here. It's a little dangerous.
Go ahead.
Oh no,
I was probably good. I was gonna say I did read a study that it was somewhere in like Southern California where everybody's like super liberal and they all have like the same exact viewpoints, that there was an overabundance of a certain frequency in that area. and they were like linking it to certain like, and people had like certain like depression and like mental illnesses, like a lot in that area.
Interesting.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I've not seen that, but yeah, there is the electromagnetic world is a mystery to us for the most part still, but we're always finding links to things that you would never expect. So I could definitely get on board with that. Now, where are you that is so snowy? And I'm somewhere on the East Coast, obviously.
Right. Massachusetts, Southeast Massachusetts.
Oh yeah, Massachusetts. Okay, so not New England.
New England, yes.
New England. Okay. Oh,
Yep. Yep.
oh man, but I think God's entire purpose for me doing this podcast is to learn more about geography.
Sure,
So,
it's a little more than that, but
well, who knows the mysteries of God's plan?
it's
Oh
true.
man. All right, so you're going to stay warm over there. We're all signing on by listening to this podcast. We are agreeing to the very real possibility that we will lose you to some natural disaster. Not lose your life, hopefully,
Right.
but we will lose connection.
Or whatever.
So, how old are you? Do you want to play the guessing game? Here I go. I'm gonna try guessing.
Yeah, let's guess it.
Okay.
I got a beard.
You got a beard. Yeah. Oh well, I knew that already. I'm just gonna throw one out. I'm gonna say mid-30s, late 20s,
No.
17.
No.
Oh no,
I'm like, you're almost close in mid-20. I'm 25.
25. That was gonna be my next guess. That was actually my real guess. The other three, those were just fakes. I still have a perfect record, everybody. I'm the greatest age guesser.
All right, let me take a shot.
Okay.
You're like 32, 33-year-old Viking.
It's very close. I'll give you the point because I feel like a 32, 33-year-old Viking. But yeah, so there you go. Yes. I'm going to say yes.
Just say it.
Good job. So okay. So have you listened? You kind of got roped into this. Have you heard this podcast before?
I have heard. I listened to a couple of them.
Okay.
And Katie and I, who you interviewed like last week or something, our thing is like we like to listen to Canary Cry together. So
yes. Okay. I've heard that's a good show.
Yeah.
Okay. So good. So I think you gave away the river here. So what you are, Caitlin's, as she's known colloquially around here. What? Husband?
Boyfriend.
Okay. Not trying to say anything, but I mean, okay, boyfriend. What if this whole thing was just a big ploy for me to influence you to propose to Caitlin?
I wouldn't be surprised if she like put you to it.
She actually paid
really
me.
Wouldn't be.
She paid me in Bitcoin to do this
Bitcoin.
this black market transaction to find her, to get you to propose to her. Okay, so very cool. Now, so she's over there. She's dealing with the storm too.
Yep.
I think I'm going to put out this. It would make sense if I put out this episode after hers. So, and by the time this comes out, hopefully the storm will have passed. But I mean, hey, look, man, I'm not going to take anything for granted. I don't want to speak evil over you guys, but I mean, this might be the last podcast that you're ever on. So I want to take full advantage and get the story. So did you grow up there in Massachusetts?
Yes, I did.
You did. You're a Massachusetts boy.
Yep.
I was trying to think of a more clever name for a person from Massachusetts, but Massachusetts boy was the best I could do.
I could give you a couple, but
okay, give it to me.
They're not the very nicest.
Oh.
So yeah.
Well,
But
come on, man.
I don't
Kids
fall into.
listen to this show.
Yeah, I know. That's what I don't fall into that category. But apparently, like our neighboring states think we're all of you know, a certain name. They just put an M in front of, and yeah,
Oh, okay. Yeah. Nope. I'm
you might have
okay.
heard it before. I don't know.
I don't know if I have, but all the possibilities that just ran through my head, none of them were things I want to say on this show. So,
Exactly.
so okay. So what was that like? I mean, are you used to all the snow going on? Are you adept at surviving in the cold weather?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, last year we didn't get hit with a lot of snow. We actually like through December, January, it was like 40, 50 degrees, which is insanely warm. Actually, 60 degrees too, which is insanely warm for us up here.
Yeah, I'd
This year,
imagine.
polar opposite. We're getting like the past 2 weeks, there's been like 9 degrees, 11
Polar.
degrees.
That was good.
Yeah. Yeah. You go outside and you're like, I'm going to go back inside.
This is not a place for humans. All right. Yeah. Well, I don't know much about it. Last year they were calling it the polar vortex, and now it's the something bomb. I just keep seeing the word bomb. I think we're all getting brainwashed for something. I don't think bomb is really a good name you use for a storm.
Yeah. I thought that was weird. The
Okay.
Genesis bomb.
Is it
Okay.
really called the Genesis bomb?
Yeah. The funny thing is, uh, everybody I know, because we're just used to all this crazy weather because we're New Englanders, and the news stations are making it to be out this big thing. Like, oh my gosh, it's a big storm. We're just like, okay, I'm gonna go to Dunkin' Donuts.
It's
This is like,
winter time.
yeah, it's like whiteout conditions, but I want a coffee or a hot chocolate or something.
Genesis bomb. I'm pretty sure that's pretty close to the the disastrous weapon from Star Trek, Wrath of Khan, I think it was, where they have the Genesis weapon that creates planet. Maybe the Genesis bomb. Maybe that's what they're calling it because it's going to usher in the new age, the Ice Age.
The Ice Age. Wait, what about the global warming? I
Well,
mean,
yeah, well,
that
they're kind
like
of
what?
see, it's part of the brainwashing. Don't you
Yeah,
know
this just
anything?
contradicts
It's the
ourselves.
double speak, and that way we just have to give up our entire understanding to those who control the media. Come on.
Yeah, that way they're never wrong because they said it was both ways,
There
right?
you go. You're getting it.
Simple.
You're getting
Yeah.
it. Um okay, let's we could
Oh
just talk
man,
about the storm the whole time. That's fun.
I and then go off on random mind control
Yeah,
tangents.
talk about Star Trek and mind control for 2 hours. Okay. All right. So you grew up in Massachusetts. Tell me about your childhood a little bit. Your cold, cold, desolate childhood.
Hey, I mean, just a little FYI, like we get everything from blizzards to hurricanes to tornadoes up here, so we
Oh
get a little
man,
bit, even earthquakes.
God's
Uh,
blessed land of
yeah.
disaster.
So yeah, I mean, it's growing up here. So like I talked to some people that they're not of the general blue state viewpoint. They come from like if I'm talking politically, like red states or whatever, conservative viewpoint versus liberal.
Yeah.
um and growing up being like believing Bible, having like a Bible based belief,
Yeah.
and here, and then it just being used to everybody else being like total polar opposite. When I talk to someone that's moved up here from down south or whatever, they're just like, how do you deal with it? Like, what? Everybody's so cold here, and nobody, blah blah blah. I'm like, I just, never thought of it any differently because that's what I, grew up with.
So
Um,
wait, I'm sorry. So just so I
but
follow, they are kind of traditional Bible believers, or they're not? Is it more red or more blue? What are we looking at?
it's completely like blue,
Okay,
liberal.
got it.
That's so people that are from like a red state that move here that I've known, they're like, how did you grow up here? Like, how do you deal with this? So,
Got it.
and I'm just like, well, I'm just kind of used to the, craziness.
Yeah.
Uh, so grow up, my childhood was very interesting, non um, traditional. I don't know,
Okay.
whatever you
Yeah.
want to call it. So like, I'll kind of go through because this whole big, I'm 25. Probably started when I was 5 years old, and still going to this day. Like my family always has this series of events that happen to us, and it's just God preparing us and helping us grow for what He has us to do. So like when I was like 5 or 6, we were in an apartment. We were living in an apartment, and I remember that day too. I was practicing violin, and the landlord came to the door and gave us an eviction letter. And it was basically because they would just wanted to move into that apartment because it was the nice one, and they were going to redo it and redo the upstairs. They said, "Oh, you can move in upstairs." We're like, I remember my mom crying. She's like, "What are we going to do?" So we moved in with my grandmother, who lives in the town next to the city we're living in. And it was only supposed to be for a little while, like 6 months to a year. Ended up being like 18 years.
Oh,
Yeah. So what happened was we started living there, and every place that my parents would get, like, oh, we're gonna rent this house. They find out that my parents have kids, and they're like pulling all kinds of garbage. Like, oh, what was that? Oh, like my mom's on the phone with one lady, and she finds out she has kids. She's like, oh, what was that, honey? To her husband, oh, you rented it out today? Sorry, it's unavailable. Goodbye. And
uh,
just like hangs up.
they didn't
Stuff
want to
like that,
rent to a family with children, or
Yeah.
just your mom.
It was no to all five of us. My brother, my sister, my father, my mother. I have
Okay.
two older siblings that moved out. Like they're like 15 years older than me or something. So stuff like that. So what ended up happening was my grandmother got old, and she started not be able to do things for herself. So we ended up staying there and taking care of her. Um, and that's why we ended up staying so long, because nobody else in the family, we were there, so nobody else stepped up to do anything. And we were basically like, especially my father, it's his mother-in-law. He was basically her caretaker. He made her breakfast, made her food, gave her medications, her vitamins, anything that she needed. That's what he did for her. And long story short, over the time we were there, my grandmother kept trying to put it in the will so my mom would get the house, because my mom has 5 sisters. They all have houses, and my grandmother used to say, they all have houses. You don't have a house. I want you to have this one when I pass on. You're here taking care of me. I want you to have it." And through or like the through everything, the family talked her out of it every time she wanted to do it. My grandmother ended up passing away, and it was written in the will that we have the first dibs to buy the house. And at that time, I was in my second and a half year of college. I was at Berklee College of Music, and I ended up not going back because this was all happening. Like, she passed away. We're like, well, what's going to happen? Ended up being I'm kind of like just condensing the story, but so what happened was in 2014, the fall, I didn't go back to school. I started in late 2011, 2012. And so 2014, I didn't go back for the fall semester, and everything kind of like started to fall apart basically. Uh, so my aunt sold the house to my cousin,
What?
who, yeah,
Wait,
because we
what?
couldn't buy it.
Why is
Yeah,
everybody trying to keep your mom homeless? I'm
no,
confused
it
about
gets.
this.
Yeah, I don't know. And everybody saw it as fair. They're like, oh, when we lived with my grandmother, we weren't paying rent. We couldn't pay. We helped out. Right? We did everything. Like we took care of we took care of her. We took care of the house. Like whatever needed to be done. But we couldn't afford it at that time because my dad ended up losing his job and stuff. And then he ended up homeschooling us. And my mom, when my dad lost his job, my mom got a full time job. The place she was working at offered her full time, so they made the flip. And my dad ended up teaching us. He homeschooled us and took care of my grandmother. So back to 2014, um, this is all going down. My cousin buys the house, but he was still in his lease for his apartment. So he's like, "You guys can stay here." And we basically paid his mortgage. And so September 2014. He had the end of September or something. He ended up owning the house. He ended up buying it. All the paperwork, everything went through, and then we were there till the end of February. And we had several opportunities, like right after he bought the house in like December. We had found some apartments that we could afford, and it was like 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and in our price range. But we didn't, because we didn't want to put him out, because he wasn't able to. Sorry, I keep getting like weather updates on my phone.
That's okay. Yeah, keep us updated. We want to know.
Yeah,
Still snowing, still cold.
yeah, no, yeah. And it's because he wasn't able to pay his rent and the mortgage. So we're like, well, we'll stay here and we'll help him out. So, and it ended up being at the end of 3 months when his lease was up, he basically told us, all right, you guys gotta go. And we were always, looking, and we didn't have a place. And then about 2 weeks before that we were supposed to move out, we had a place, but it was definitely not where God wanted us to be. And so the move out day came, and we were supposed to move. It was like the end of the week. We were supposed to move out or something, and it was like a few days, like a day or two before. Like he was saying, like, I'm moving in this day. We go to the apartment that it was like a rat hole, and like $14 a month for like 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom rat hole.
$14?
$1,400 a
Oh,
month.
14. That's a lot of money for a rat hole.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that's more than the mortgage we have on the house right now that we're living in. But anyways, that was not where God wanted us to be, for sure. And so we were supposed to move in. It was like the day before he was going to move in. We got the truck, packed the truck up, and we go to the apartment to clean and start moving stuff in, and they said, "Oh, you can't move in today." We're like, "Why?" A pipe burst in the heating system. There's no heat and there's water everywhere. Like, when can we move in? We don't, we have to be out tomorrow or whatever. And they're like, you'll move in tomorrow. We'll get the plumber in here today, and you'll be able to move in tomorrow. We're like, okay. So we bring all the stuff back, put it back in the house, bring the truck back. My cousin shows up, and she shows up at the house, walks in. He's like, "Why is all your stuff here?" And we're just like, we couldn't move in. The pipe burst. Whatever. We're gonna move out first thing in the morning. Like, okay, whatever. So get the truck again. Mind you, we had another wonderful New England snowstorm with like 24 inches of snow, and we're moving our furniture through. That was crazy. All the snow everywhere. It made it tough.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. The truck ended up getting stuck in a snowbank. A little side story.
Oh my God. Okay.
It
Wow.
was full of furniture and everything. It took my dad was he was in the truck, and it took me and 3 or 4 other guys, and we just started like pushing it and rocking it. We finally got it out.
Yeah, I imagine that would be a big stall in the process.
Right.
So did they get the apartment fixed? What happened?
So I should say, on the way to the apartment, the truck gets stuck in a snowbank. That's how I should have worded it. And then so we get it out, and we're all like steaming, because while we're moving out, my cousin, he was supposed to move in later in the day. He decides he wants to start moving in the morning. So we're trying to move stuff out, and he's moving his stuff in. And we're like, what the heck? And anyways, so we get to the apartment.
I'm about to strangle you. What happened?
I'm glad I'm building up the suspense.
You are?
So we get to the apartment, and my dad goes to the office. He gets the keys. They're like, "Oh yeah, blah blah blah," and okay, good. We're gonna move in. And I'm looking around, and in my spirit, like inside of me, I'm just like, I don't want to be here. We're not supposed to be here. This is not good. This is not right. So my dad he puts the key in the lock, and we're like, well, this is what we got for now. So I guess we got to deal with it. We already signed the lease paperwork and everything. Puts the key in the lock of the door, goes to open the door. The door literally will not open. He's trying. It won't open. Goes back to the office.
Like
Is this
is
the right key? The door won't open. They're like, yeah, it's the right key. Try it again. Trying. The door will not open. The lock won't open. They're like, the maintenance guy was in there yesterday. So they call the maintenance guy. He's trying to unlock the door. The door will not open.
what in the world? It's just like supernaturally locked.
And so like the maintenance guy had to go around back. There's like a back door or something that he either broke in or had the key to that he got in, and then he had to like he got inside and then he had to like drill out the lock or whatever and take it all apart. So basically there was no lock on the door, and the door just anybody could just walk in. They're like, oh, we'll get a new lock on it first thing. It'll take like 2 days. So like we're gonna pull our stuff in here, and there's gonna be no lock on the door. Yep. And we're just like, and at this point we're getting the picture like, okay, God, I think like we know what you're trying to say here, and we're just kind of like distraught because everything's just falling apart in front of us. And so we're in the parking lot, and we're just like, and Katie was there, and she's like, "Hey, let's just pray." So my dad, we're all in the parking lot. My dad's just like, we're in the parking lot. My dad's just like, he's like, God, what do we do? Show us what to do. And then literally, like after he says that, like a few minutes after he says that, his phone rings. It's the manager of the apartment, and he's like, Joe, that's my dad's name, Joe. Well, come back to the office. I'm gonna give you your money back. You're not gonna be happy here. And we're like, okay, that's okay. So we're like, okay, we're gonna go to a hotel then. That's that. And it was like a sigh of relief because it was like, this is all we had to that. Like this is where we're supposed to sleep tonight, but we feel like we're really not supposed to be here. What do we do, God? Help us out here. And then we get the phone call. So after that, we got like a storage unit. We just unloaded the truck, put everything in the storage unit, and then someone from our church, our congregation, they put us up in a hotel for the first week or two, and because we couldn't, we like the money that we had was to go for like first, last, and security on an apartment. So we were like, we had put all that on that apartment, and then he gave it back to us, and then we're like, well, now what do we do if we spend all this money on a hotel, which we need somewhere to go tonight? We're not going to be able to get an apartment like when we find one. So someone, and we didn't even have to ask. They knew what was going on, and they were grateful for it. Thank God that he just stepped up and helped us out, and we ended up living out of the hotel for a month.
Wow.
But it doesn't
So
stop
far,
there.
so far, okay, we're going to continue, but I just want to make a point. So far, your life story, which is often what people talk about on this show. This is an exploration of life. So far, the life story of your family is having the greatest difficulties finding a place to live. And that, like, it almost reminds me of the Israelites in a way.
Yeah,
Wow. Okay, continue.
it is true. We've always just, like when I talk about my mom and dad flipping, like my dad stayed home, my mom went to work. We've always just done what we heard God tell us to do, and we've always gotten pounded for it. Like we just always getting hit hard, and I take it as like that's how you know you're doing what you're supposed to do when you have the opposition. The enemy's going to come at you, and he's going to put stuff in your way, and you're just going to keep pushing forward. So we get to the hotel. We're like, okay, um, we're like searching for stuff, and through this whole process, my dad's like God is teaching my dad a lesson. I was like, I remember like the first night there, I was like, what the heck just happened? Because like with my cousin, he said, I remember too. We're like, yeah, well, this is what happened with the apartment when the pipe burst and stuff. He looked at me and he said, well, and we're like, well, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. They said we can move in, but we don't know. And he looked at me and he said, regardless, I'm moving in tomorrow. So it didn't matter whether we had a place to go or not. He told us, he's like, he's moving in.
Yeah.
And
Your cousin doesn't sound like a very nice guy.
I don't know. He's had it tough.
Yeah.
I forgive him. I really do.
Okay.
Um, I that's the only way to move forward is just to forgive. And I remember just like laying in the bed in the hotel, like just like what the heck just happened that first night we were in there. I was like staring at the ceiling, the lights coming in from the light outside through the blinds. I'm just like, I couldn't even believe everything that happened because through that 3 months, like we were there after he bought the house. So like, well, we're gonna stay here and help him out, help pay. We're gonna pay the mortgage. We'll stay here, and because family helps family. That's all I kept saying was family helps family. He's family. We don't want to leave him in a dire strait because he's not gonna be able to pay his mortgage and his rent. Family helps family. And then when it came our turn to get help, it wasn't reciprocated.
Sure.
So we got to the hotel, and we're thinking, just recovering. Um, and so, I don't know, was it literally the oh my goodness. Yeah. So we get in the hotel, and then 3 days later, after we get in the hotel, my parents get like a summons to court for something that they didn't know about because we were in between addresses, so there's nowhere to get the mail. And it was just crazy. I don't even remember what it was for, but it was like if you didn't show up, then you're gonna get in some trouble or something. But it ended up being nothing once they went. And then the Friday after we get in the hotel, they're doing road work outside on the main road, and the construction workers they hit a water main. And I look out the window, and there's like this river flowing around flowing around the hotel, and it's like my dad says like you could like put a canoe in there and just float around, and I was just like what the heck is going on? And I look, there's like water pouring in, the hotel flooded.
What the heck?
The entire
Disaster is just chasing you around. I mean, Massachusetts, man. That's it seems to be just a way of life over there.
I don't know, uh, and the entire first floor of the hotel flooded, and you think it's not a big deal until you're told they already had rooms booked. Like they had the like 2 floors booked, and then so now you subtract 1 floor, and until you're told like, yeah, you guys, you got to leave by this date because we already have these rooms booked for some event or whatever, and there's nothing we can do. Sorry, and we're just like, oh, and
So now you're getting kicked out of the hotel because
yeah.
you got kicked out of your apartment because you got kicked out of the house. Okay. All right.
And which seems like okay, go to another hotel, but we had cats and we weren't ready to give them up, and this was the
No,
only
you
hotel
can't
in
give
the
up the
area.
cats. The
No,
cats,
no,
that's close. You
yeah,
give up one of
you
the
got
kids before the cats.
right. Yeah, you understand. And we had 3 cats, and that was the only hotel in the area that allowed cats. So
So
we were just like,
now we're going into some Anne Frank hiding cats story. Huh? Huh? Keep quiet, little meow meows.
yeah, really. So fast forward like another 2 weeks or something.
2 weeks?
Yeah,
Where were you
because
staying for 2 weeks? I mean, I hate to ask.
that was at the hotel.
Okay, all
They
right.
said you have to be out by such and such a date, which was like another 2 weeks or
That
something
could
like
get
that.
expensive staying at a hotel for two
Oh
weeks.
yes, yes it did. But we were thankful to have people help us out.
Okay.
Um, and we were there for a month though. And then so fast forward to the date that they said like this is the back date. Uh, we got on that day, my dad went down the lady's like, because she knew our situation. She felt so bad. She's like, well, if there's anything I can do, I'll do it. So just check before you leave. So we went and checked that day. And she's like, yeah, you can stay one more night. There was an opening, someone like canceled or whatever. She's like, I don't know I can't guarantee anything else. And at this time, we were in the process of getting an apartment. Um, but we were just like waiting on a call back from them. So we got to stay there one more night, but then the next day that was it. They had nothing else, so we had to leave. So we packed up all our stuff and packed the cars up and had the cats in the carrier, and we're just like we have nowhere to go. It was the weirdest feeling in the world. Like you like at the end of a long day, you're like, I want to go home. This was like we pack everything up and like you put it in the car and it's just like,
There's just nowhere to go.
yeah, where do I go?
That's
So we,
crazy.
yeah, it's
And
the
I don't,
weirdest thing.
yeah, I mean, I want to give, actually, I want to give that the attention it deserves, because, I mean, that's an existential issue. You know,
Right.
so many of us, even if we're having the worst day of our life, you know, we lose our job, the cat runs away, whatever, whatever, whatever. For the most part, we it's not where do we go? It's okay, we go home and we deal with the troubles of life. If you don't have a home to go to, that's I mean, that's a certain type of existential problem. Anyways, I wanted to
It's
give that my own
yeah,
emotional
no, yeah,
attention, and I want the listeners to as well, because it's unfortunately trouble that more people have than we would like to admit. But okay,
right,
anyway, so now you're at this point. You have nowhere to go. Your whole
right.
life, your whole family, three cats, everything's in a truck or something apparently.
Toyota
And
Avalon,
Toyota Avalon, holy smokes.
96 Toyota Avalon
Yeah,
with
okay.
325,000 miles or something like
Yeah.
330,000 miles.
You
Um,
gotta there has to be a promised land ramping up in this story. You get there, you gotta give me this.
well, yeah, there is, but even right now, we're not even totally there yet.
Okay, okay,
But
let's keep going. I,
we're still fighting. So,
I'm by the way, just so you know, this is quite a unique conversation as far as this podcast is concerned. And I don't get me wrong, I'm getting a lot out of this, and I look forward to talking in depth once we get to the promised land here. So let's hold on. Let's hold on for the ride, everybody.
so I guess like just on like a side note, my thing through this, because I know Joyce Spiracies is um, even through like the down times, that's that's where you learn to be content. That's where you learn to have
Yeah.
peace. So rather than going like, "Oh God, why is this happening to me?" It's I remember instead of being like, "Wow, why is this happening?" Once I got over like the shell shock of like, "Wow, what just happened?" I just went to the place of like, God, you're in control, and you know you're not gonna let us fall. You're not just gonna let us fall to the wayside. I don't know what you're doing, but I'm going to be alert and look for what you are teaching me and accept it and learn so I can take it into the future with me for whatever you have for me to do.
That is beautiful, because I gotta say, I mean, this is a special case of things going wrong almost in a supernatural way.
Oh,
And
gosh.
yeah, I would imagine, most of us here with our families, if we were going through the same thing, I mean, there's a lot of tension and frustration and things that can build up that could really cause some serious issues, not just in family dynamics, but even just like personal, like emotional health.
Right,
But it sounds
right.
like you got a pretty good head on your shoulders. So, how is the family holding up? You're like, how is, for instance, your parents' marriage going? I mean, was there any time where you're like, wow, this could this like be a breaking point, or of
Oh,
any kind, or is
oh, no way.
everybody's pretty level headed around there, huh?
Right. Well, my dad, and if you were to like talk to him, he could tell you like everything he was going through, and God was using that experience to teach him to, because he likes to think about um, the things in the future. He could be like a what do they call them? Someone that that plans for the worst disaster possible. Like they have to think of it and then plan for it. He's like
Yeah,
that kind of.
he's like a
He has that kind
prepper.
of.
He's like ready for the
No,
black
it's not.
swan event.
Yeah, it's not even like a prepper. It's just like, oh, I don't want, he'll just like he gets caught up in like, oh, what are we gonna do next? Like, how are we gonna make this happen? How are we gonna make that happen?
Right.
And through the whole thing, God was teaching him, because he was probably the one that was most on edge.
Yeah.
After about the first week, I was just like, okay, you know what? We're here and we're in this hotel, which is really cool. We got like a gym, we got a pool, we
Living
got
the
a nice,
life.
yeah. and it's like I'm just gonna enjoy it. I don't know how long we're gonna be here, but I'm gonna enjoy every day. I went swimming like a lot, and I wasn't working at the time because like to get a job when you don't have an address, that was another thing. I was like, I should probably get a job, but what do I put for my address?
Wow.
Um,
I mean, that's a divine surrender you guys had to really work yourself into.
anybody for anybody that's listening, like anything that you go through in life, it can be be made so much easier if you just surrender to God, if you just surrender to Him, rather than fighting and be like, oh, whatever, or trying to figure it out. Just know that He knows what He's doing, and that's all that you need to know, and He'll make known to you whatever He needs to make known to you. That's that's what I have learned.
Amen, brother. Okay,
So
so what's the next step after this hotel?
so we oh yes, the hotel, and family members kept telling us like, oh, go to the Catholic social services or whatever. They can help you find a place. Then blah blah blah. I remember that day too. I was like, that was another thing. I was like, we're not. What are we doing here? We're not supposed to be here. It was this old brick building with like stone, and on the front it had like a stone placard that said like 18 something Catholic social services or whatever, because my aunt or someone knew someone there. They're like, oh yeah, they should be able to help you, just go there. And which on the inside, honestly, I'm like, I mean, I don't know what their situation was, but I wasn't, I definitely wasn't feeling the support from them when your family members tell you like, oh yeah, go them, they can help you out, go to them or something.
Right,
But
right.
I remember we get in front of the building, and it was like 12, 11 or 12 o'clock, and then like the church bell starts like ringing, and I was like, it was so weird.
Oh man,
It
that's
was
like
a cold,
cinematic.
yeah, it was like a cold afternoon in March, and I'm just like, this is just weird. And so we went in there, and basically we told the lady what happened to us, and she basically started crying in the room, and she told us that like there was nothing she could do for us unless we were like drug addicts or something like that. She's like, this we there's nothing we can do. And so that was a little step back, but anyways, that kind of like played into it because she did give us a list of, she's like, well, maybe call these places, maybe they can help you. And so that happened, and then we're nearing the end of our stay in the hotel. And so, oh, that, yeah, I remember where we were now. Pack up the Avalon, got the cats and the carriers like stacked up on us in the back seat because there's five of us. It's a five passenger, and then our friend came and helped us out. Um, and they said like they were renting a house, and a part of their agreement for their renting the house was they couldn't have anybody stay there. So that's why we couldn't go with them because they couldn't we could have figured something out like that too. But we went over there for the afternoon, and they were nice enough because they had a dog. They put the dog in a cage. They're like, let the cats roam around, so because they've just been stuck in the cage for a couple hours. So,
Sure.
and the cats like they roam around the house. They caught a mouse
Hey,
for
there you
them.
go.
So, and so we're just like waiting for this call back for this apartment. The lady's like, oh yeah, I'll call you back before 4. It's like 2 o'clock. We leave the hotel at 11:30. We get to um, a friend's house, and it's like 12 o'clock. We're just sitting around. Like, what the heck do we do? 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. Time is dragging. My dad's like checking his phone, checking his phone. 2:30, 3 o'clock rolls around. He's like, I'm gonna call him. He calls him. It's like a busy signal, or he gets the answering machine. 4 o'clock comes, and then we're like, okay, they're done. The office closed at 4, so we're like, okay, that's it. Now we're gonna figure out what we're gonna do tonight because we literally have nowhere to go. And so what ended up happening, because we had the cats, I know my mom called some of my aunts or something, and I couldn't understand for the life of me why. Um, I'll just be like straight up. I'm just trying to be nice with some of the things I'm saying, but I'll be like straight up now. Some of them got like old whaling man. One of them's got like an old whaling mansion. I couldn't understand for the life of me why you couldn't like. They said like, oh yeah, we could take one person.
So you
I'm like,
are just like falling into the hands where you're just needing to rely on the goodness of strangers, which is falling a little bit short, even when it seems like they might be able to reach out a little better.
not even strangers, but family,
Oh my
or
gosh. Yeah.
suppose, and so one says like, oh yeah, we could take, yeah, you can come over here, and another one, my mom has like five sisters, and another one's like, oh yeah, yeah, Liz, my sister can go and she can bring a cat, and we're like, what? And then like another one's like, oh yeah, I'll take the boys, and then my dad's like, I'll go sleep at, oh, and it's like I'll go sleep at his mother's house, my grandmother's house. Um, and just for clarification, my grandmother that passed away was on my mom's side. So
Yeah.
and by the way, through all this too, my grandmother that was living on my dad's side is in the hospital on top of it. I forgot what she had going on, but she was at the hospital. At the same exact time, we were getting kicked out of the hotel. Uh, so what ended up happening was like my mom went to that aunt's house that was like, oh yeah, I could take one, and then my sister, uh, her college roommate, um, in Boston, they had like a small apartment, and they already had two cats in the apartment, but she's like, yeah, come on up, bring the cats, stay as long as you need, and which we were grateful for, and I was like, it's if people with more didn't do less, there would be a lot more people helped out. There's always like the people that don't have a lot that have the biggest hearts that go that go the extra mile.
Right.
Like, and that was something that became very very clear to me through all this. And so we brought her up to Boston, and then we dropped her off with the cats, and it was just my dad, my brother, and myself, and we're just like, what do we do?
Now,
Where do we go?
yeah, before all of this, I mean, was your relationship with your extended family such that you would expect them to kind of step up and invite you guys in? I mean, even if it's, even for a limited period of time, maybe pass you around or something instead of trying to split everything up. Was that before this? Was that something you would expect your extended family to be able to do in their hearts? Or was this a
That's
surprise?
what I would have done. I would have been like, hey, you guys, I don't care if you're gonna sleep on the floor or whatever. We'll figure it out. Come on over. We'll
Yeah.
figure it out. You know what I mean? For a family that calls themselves Christians,
Yeah. I mean, if you can't
it's
even take your own family in,
it was yeah, it was kind of, I don't know. It left bad taste,
okay.
and my mom was definitely hurt a lot by it. She's like, my own sisters, like, they don't. Number one, it was kind of everything that went down with the house, how my grandma wanted to give it to it and everything, and all the strife over the years because we were living with my grandmother, and people are like, I literally had like an uncle tell my dad basically like, you're freeloading off her, and we're like, no, I don't see you there taking care of her. I don't see you there mowing the lawn. I don't see you there dealing with the neighbors and just doing basically home ownership of the house, but
Right.
yet they all want a piece of the pie.
And taking care of your grandmother in her time
Yeah,
of need.
yeah, and I think the biggest thing for me was my grandmother always said she wanted to stay in her house as long as she could to the end of her life, as long as she could, and we made that happen for her. We fulfilled that wish for her because it got to the point when it got to the point where she couldn't walk. That's when she went into a nursing home, and it was almost a year to the day that she passed away. So we were able to allow her to live in her house, um, just about through the whole rest of her life. Uh, so back to driving back from Boston, we're just kind of like, what do we do? And my dad's like, well, we don't have anywhere else to go, and we don't have money to get a hotel. So, because we're waiting for the call back, and we had the money for the apartment to put the first, last, and security. That's all we had. So my dad's like, my grandmother who was in the hospital, he talked to her, and she lives in like a housing complex. It's
Yeah.
not really old people anymore, but we kind of, I don't want to say snuck in, but we went in there and we stayed the night because we had nowhere else to go. We slept on our couch, and and then the next morning we got up, and that was again, we got up just basically like I had like my toothbrush and just like brush our teeth and leave. Or like, well, I guess we'll go get breakfast somewhere. And again, it was another one of those moments like after we ate, we're like, okay, where do we go? What do we do now? Like we got nowhere to go, literally again. And so we got breakfast, and then we are just kind of like, I think we were gonna go like to the mall or something, and just we are just waiting, just needed to kill time to get the phone call from the lady of the apartment complex. And so we finally, it was like 11:30 or something. We finally got the call from her, and she's like, "Yeah, you guys, yep, you guys can move in today, blah blah blah." And we're like, "Okay, great, this is awesome, wonderful." We don't. That was like it was such a big relief, and even though it was a small apartment, it was a 2 bedroom, 1 bathroom apartment that 5 people and 3 cats lived in for yeah, for 2.5 years.
Well,
My brother,
really
yep.
teaches you to be grateful after everything
Oh
you
yeah.
guys went through. I mean,
Oh yeah.
2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom for 8 people, I will say. Um,
There were times where like you're in the bathroom, the cat's scratching at the door, meowing like need to use the litter box. But
it
uh,
doesn't seem so bad after having to.
after all that, yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
And so we moved in, and it was, we my dad's he's a minister, and we had like a Bible study every week on Saturdays on Shabbat. And that's what, so we started meeting again in the apartment. And it was funny because it was always like something happening there, or whatever. And and it was like we had been meeting for a year or something, and then like literally like after like a year to the almost to the day, um, someone complained about whatever, and they basically told us, because we would have like worship and stuff. They're like, yeah, you can't do that anymore. We're like, what do you mean we can't do that? We're not breaking any rules. We read the rule book and everything. And they're like, and the office lady, like, she was nice. We had like a good relationship with her, but she, and we're like, we do everything by the book. And she's like, I'm sorry, blah blah blah. So that like put a damper on, or a hindrance on that. And I mean, it wasn't like the apartment was, it was tough. uh but my family were like close knit, and we just learned to work with each other and work around each other. I shared a bedroom with my what now 22, 23-year-old brother, and my now 27-year-old sister for 2.5 years.
Wow.
Uh, we and it was just it was in a big room either. One bed on each wall, and didn't even have any dressers or anything. We just had like those Keter shelves, like the stackable plastic shelves, and that's what we just put our clothes on there. We all shared a closet, and basically the apartment was like kitchen, bedroom, a little like cut out on the wall for a dining area, living room, and then my parents' bedroom. And
Now, I gotta say, situations like that, I would love to think that my family would come closer together and we would learn so much about each other and just really become a nice, tight family unit. I'm pretty sure some of us would die if if we were put in that situation. But I mean, hey, we're all friends here. We can be honest. I mean, were there
yeah.
times when it got kind of sketchy in those close quarters? I mean, you put too many
It,
monkeys in a cage, something's going to start flying.
well, what the biggest, now part of the thing I understand about this apartment, it was in an old textile mill. this building was
What?
1,000 feet long, and they they redid it and divided it up, and they made apartments out of it. So it
Okay.
was one. Our apartment was one level. We had 18-foot ceilings. The only room that was basically had a wall all the way up to the ceiling was my parents' bedroom. Every other room, except for one closet, which had the heating system in it, was all it had walls like 8 or 9 foot walls, but they didn't go up to the ceiling. And this apartment had 18-foot ceilings. Even the bathroom, it was kind of enclosed, but for whatever reason, there was one area of the bathroom which like part of the ceiling there was a hole, and it was just open, and it was weird because someone's in the bathroom and they're like, yeah, and it was just like they were like sitting right out there, you know, going to the bathroom. So we ended up like uh filling that hole in real quick.
Oh my
But
gosh.
so basically, so even the bedroom, it didn't have walls up to the ceiling. So you can go to the bedroom, shut the door, but if someone's talking in the kitchen or someone's talking in the living room, which is all adjacent to the bedroom anyways, um, you're gonna hear everything they say because it's all open. So now take that, and you have 5 people living in the house, and you have 4 different work schedules, 4 different times that everybody's gonna go to sleep. It made it tough.
Oh my
That made it
gosh.
tough, and the
Yeah.
fact that you didn't have any space to go in and just
Be by
and be quiet.
yourself, have some
Exactly.
privacy,
Be
anything
yeah,
like
and
that.
exactly, and be quiet after a while. Like sometimes, you like you said, just being real, we get on each other's nerves, and it just happens.
Yeah.
And it just and everybody, even though everybody's like thoughtful of each other, but it's just like sometimes you just someone gets up at 4:30 in the morning because they gotta get ready for work. That's just how it is. If you wake up, then it's too bad, or like someone goes to bed at 10:30 because they gotta get up in the morning. Then um, then you just kind of like quiet down as best you can, even though no matter what you do, they're gonna hear it.
Sure, sure.
So it was like it made it tough, um, but we just pushed through it. And about after the first year there, I was like, okay, guys, let's we're not supposed to be here forever. And I believe, you know, um, it's like Abraham moving through the desert. They stay in one place. They pitched a tent. That's where they lived for the time being. But then they get up and move. Same thing with Israel, like you're talking before. They were there for a certain period of time, and then it was like, oh, the cloud's moving. Let's go. Pull up stakes and let's go. So I was like, let's start pushing to get our own house.
Yeah.
And if we're all paying the rent together and the utilities or whatever. And I was like, I think we could do it because it wasn't cheap to live in that place. And then every year the rent would go up and up with no cap. It just kept going up. And so I remember I was working at Kmart as a secure asset protection or loss prevention. And I was calling like these mortgage companies. I would look up. I actually I woke up in the middle of the night and I saw like it was like I woke up and I was like I just knew it was like you gotta look up Christian mortgage companies. So I was like okay, so I started looking them up and I started like calling them and telling them like our situation. And it's like it's gonna be like the whole family going in on it and stuff. And that didn't work out too well, or not as well as I thought it would, because I basically like had people, because you got to fill out the application. So I just like fill it out and just put my name on it or whatever. And just had people like calling me and like insulting my intelligence, like, oh, yeah, you definitely don't make enough to have a mortgage, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, guys, listen, like your website said you're here to help, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, just listen. And they, they didn't want to hear it.
Really? So these
So,
are companies that are, supposed to help you get a mortgage, figure it out.
yeah.
You've got a
And they,
complicated situation.
and they tout like being Christians and helping so many people in dire situations or whatever, or people that thought they couldn't get a house, and blah blah blah. And I'm like, listen, guys, I know it's not impossible because we're basically paying a mortgage on a house with what we're paying for an apartment right now.
Right.
So I just need help with how to go about it. So, and it was like, keep getting like pushed down. And I was like, I didn't, after everything we've been through, I'm like, I'm not gonna let that stop me. Like, come on. And so it was like 7, 8 months later. And the other thing too was finding a house that was in like that price range. Like as you heard before, like $1,400 for a rat hole. That's how things are up here.
Yeah.
$250,000 or $300,000. I'll go with a low, like $250,000 down south will get you like a 4-bedroom house, 2 bathrooms or something like that, and maybe put some elbow grease in it to make it, update it and whatever. That up here will get you like 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom.
So here's a question for you. Why didn't you guys go somewhere else? Why are you sticking in Massachusetts?
Because my dad, and that's what people say, like, well, why don't you move here or there? And we always felt that God is going to use us in this area because there's so much like Massachusetts. I mean, the city I live in, New Bedford, I actually like learned this a few months back, which I didn't realize it, but they call it like the harrowing city or whatever. And there's so much darkness that we're not meant to just like, oh, it's, this is, just go where it's more comfortable or whatever. We felt that like we're supposed to be here to make a difference in this area, so we're just gonna stake our claim and we're gonna stick it out.
You guys were like on a mission as a family to not be defeated by this place that you were called to help out.
Right.
Wow. Okay.
And that's part of the reason why I say we're still going, we're still pushing forward. So so right now I'm sitting in for the first time in my life, my own room, which was still a foreign concept to me because I've always shared a room.
How old are you at that point?
At what point? When?
Wait, you're saying right now?
Oh yeah, I was gonna say right. Yeah, I was just getting off on a little tangent.
Oh, right now you're in the room. That's your first room you've ever had to yourself.
Yeah, right now.
Wow.
And I'm 25, so.
Wow.
And it's like such a foreign concept, and that's what I was going with, because I say, because how we found this house was a total act of God. One thing led to another, and my brother, he ended up getting approved for a mortgage of $100,000, and it was kind of on accident because I'm like, Joey, let's just do this. Let's just call places. Let's ask them what we need to do. And then we called one place, and next thing we know, like 5 minutes later, like, oh yeah, you got approved for pre-approved for 100,000. We're like freaking out, like, what? What? And then my sister did it, and she got approved for 100,000. And then I was trying to do it and get on there to help, because now we're at 200,000, which makes it really tough to find something that fits our needs, like I was saying before.
Sure.
And they're like, because at that time I was self-employed. I'm a musician. I teach music. That's what I do. And at that time I transitioned from doing loss prevention at Kmart to I was teaching at a school, and it had only been about a year, and they were like, we need to see 2 years. So I was like, okay. And sorry, I just had wow.
What?
I just no, because you what you said before, like about the story. I'm just thinking like, wow, because everything that's just happened to me in the past 3 months too. I'm like, wow, it just keeps going. But anyways, I will get to that later. So we approved for $200,000, and thus the hunt begins. And my I learned it from my dad. We're like bargain hunters. That's the fun of it for me. Like I hate going into a store and buying like a pair of jeans off the rack for like $40.
Right.
I want to find the deal. I like paying $10 to $12 for my jeans,
Sure.
Where's the deal at? So we're gonna find the house that's for us, and we're like praying, like, God direct us, show us, and and so we're looking at it, and we're like finding these places that are just out of the range, like 220, that like, oh, that would fit very well, 215, 230. And we contact the mortgage company, like, hey, we found this place, but it's just a little out of range. What can we do anything about it? They're like, no, sorry, we can't do anything. That you're approved for 200 and blah blah. So we got a realtor, and because up until that point we're doing it by ourselves, and because I'm like, well, maybe they know they have access to a bigger database than what we can do. And so one day, my brother he gets a list of houses from the realtor. I was like, hey Joey, let's go out, let's go look at some houses. He's like, yeah, okay. So we drive around the city, we look at some houses, and then we're like down what would be like downtown New Bedford area, and we look at one house. I'm like, oh, it was like almost in the price range, and I'm like, well, maybe if we put a little bit more on the down payment or something, we'd be able to do something about it. Because all of us, we've just been like, well, especially my brother, he was the one that did it, like saving as much as we could, and then so like there was one more house on the list. It was like up the north end, and which is a nice area, or like it's probably one of the best parts, away from all the garbage, most of it anyways.
Sure.
And so we go up there, and it was on the street called Bel Air Street, and I'm like, okay, so put in the GPS, like, where is this place? Like, where's the street? I have trouble finding the street. Then I find the street, and it's like, okay, where's the house? Looking at the numbers, it was like for a reason, it was like I couldn't count or whatever, and I'm like, Joey, do you see? He's looking, he's counting, he can't find it. So I was like, we get to the end of the street. I was like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go around the block. We'll come up again. We'll take another look. So I go to the next street over. We're driving up the street, and to like go around the block, and then we pass this house, and I see it, like I see this house. It's got this big U-shaped, like horseshoe driveway with these brick walls in front of it. The front of the house is brick. I'm like, wow, look at that house. And I say, wow, that house it's for sale. What? And then we drive by, and I'm like, nah, we can't afford that. That's too expensive. I get halfway down the street, and it was like I couldn't drive anymore. And inside of me, like the Holy Spirit's just like, you must pull over right now, look up that house. And I stopped the car, and I was like, Joey, we gotta look at this house. So turn around, go back, pull in front of the house. I look up the house online. It's way under our budget. And it's got 3 bedrooms. It's got 2 bathrooms. It had an extra room that we ended up converting into a bedroom. It fit the needs perfectly. And I was like, Joey, call a realtor right now. Forget that other house, which was like that was another rat hole, which would need a lot of work. I'm like, let's see what we can do about this. And we call a realtor, and she's like, that sounds too good to be true. Let me look into it for you. She calls us back 5 minutes later. She goes, you have to get into this house right away. She's like, it just came on the market yesterday.
Oh, wow.
I was like, that was no coincidence.
Yep.
That is
Wow.
no coincidence. So the day after, we were in the house, we're walking around the house, and we toured the house, and we're like, this fits the bill. This is it. And it was like, it was like, just step out and let's do it. Ended up being a bank owned property, and it was vacant for like 3.5 years. And so what ended up happening was, it came on the market. We found it the day after, and then, well, 1, 2, 3, 4 days after we found it was the deadline to put the offers in on the house.
Wow.
So we were like one of the first people to see the house, and then after we saw the house, we were leaving. We saw other people going in to see the house, and for what this house is in this area, um, it it was like it was that was like a God bargain, or
Sure.
whatever you
Yeah, no, I
call
mean,
it.
that sounds like a fantastic, sounds like God was saving the right one for you.
Yeah, for under 200,000, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a good. It's not a huge piece of land, but it's not a small lot either. And for everything that it had, it was just like wow. And so obviously there's going to be a buzz about it in the area. So we ended up putting our offer in on the house. We took the weekend because it was like a Monday it had to be due, and we talked it over. And then we put our offer in on the house, and we got approved. I mean, they accepted our offer, and we went through with buying the house. And as if you know, another little story. As part of buying the house, there were so many obstacles that we had to overcome. Like um, the biggest thing being the the bank not being able to contact the bank. We had to go through the realtor who didn't want to be called on the phone. Not our realtor, but the one representing the bank. So
Interesting.
anything that we needed, it had to be all email. And the guy was like slower than molasses to get anything done. And we almost didn't close on the house because the day they were closing, they're supposed to sign the paperwork. Um, the guy didn't show up. And then
What?
yeah, the realtor didn't show up. And they called me. He's like, "Oh, we're supposed to close today," and we're like, "Yes." And then on top of that, they were trying to hide that there were plumbing issues in the house, like the shower, the washer hookups, the main the main pipe into the house was like leaking when you turn it on. It would just spray water all over the basement, and they were trying to hide that from us. And we found out about it, and they were like, "Oh, oh yeah, you're gonna have to pay like an extra $2,000 to get that fixed." And when we put in our offer in, we went in, we put in like 4 grand over their asking price. So when that happened, we were like, "No, you guys are gonna fix it because we gave you more than what you were asking for the house."
Yeah.
And they ended up fixing it. And then so on the last day, the realtor, he didn't even know. Like this guy was like so out to lunch, and so we almost weren't able to close on that day either.
Wow.
And again, like our lease for the apartment we were in was up the next month or something too. So it was like it was an obstacle after an obstacle after an obstacle. Um,
But
but
perseverance.
yes, and this is where we are now, and thank God for that. The past 2.5 years for my family have been just so crazy. We haven't really recovered from when we left that my grandmother's house,
What do you mean you
and
haven't
so
recovered?
because it's been one thing after
Just
another.
emotionally?
Yeah, and plus like actually like getting like our lives back together,
Right.
um, and being in the after being in the apartment and not being able to like do the things we need to do. Like I built my business from the kitchen table of that apartment at like 12 o'clock to 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning because I didn't have anywhere else to work. That was the only time I could work because we uh, literally didn't have any space,
Sure,
any
sure.
workspace
Yeah, yeah,
in the
yeah.
well, it's actually not my business, but my course that I built. But now it's just kind of surreal to be here because I still walk through the house, even though we got in this house in August 11th, and we moved in this past September, and I still walk around the house. I'm like, wow, this is
Yeah, I mean,
hard.
this is really the first time in basically your entire life that you've had a home that was yours. I
Yeah,
mean, that's your guys's, and I mean, that's pretty amazing, man. It's a lot of us take that for granted. I got to tell you, before this was not the conversation I was expecting to have. This was not the story I was expecting to have. But I got to say, man, this is I'll say really timely in my own life, and B, I mean, really it shows that I think a lot of us listening to this have taken for granted, even those of us who are in maybe a tiny apartment that we're not quite comfortable with or whatever.
right.
We moved out of our parents' house and we have a junky little apartment or something. I mean, even that's not something to take for granted. I mean, this is really a lifelong, literally a lifelong struggle for you guys, or for
Right.
you in particular. And wow, that's just amazing. I'm just so thankful to God that you guys finally got a place to land. And even then, just the gratefulness that you express about that, just the amazement, is really beautiful. Just, I mean, I'm being convicted because, I mean, I've always had a place to stay, and even now I have my own little apartment, and I get all bent out of shape because it's kind of small, and it's I can hear the neighbors through the walls, but I mean, really,
I know that.
I gotta say, man, this is a pretty amazing story, and I gotta say, has some nice ties with the biblical account of the Israelite plight. Just gonna throw that out there.
Yeah. We're in the promised land now, I guess, right?
Yeah. Hey,
But
man.
still pushing forward.
Yeah. So looking back on this whole thing, I mean, have you really taken the time to kind of process what are some of the lessons? Like, what's it like finally having your own place, and how has that affected you emotionally?
So I can tell you for the first month that after we moved in here, I would hear someone walking around upstairs. I'd be like, because when we were in the apartment for the whole 2.5 years we were there, we had this really terrible neighbor upstairs,
Uh-huh.
and you could hear everything. Like, and I won't mention some of the things that you could hear, but this guy was like, he had like anger issues, and he'd be screaming and yelling at like 1 o'clock in the morning, and you hear him stomping around and blah blah blah. And for like the first month of moving into this house, every time someone would walk around upstairs, it'd be like, the guy's name was Jake. I'm like, oh, Jake's home. I'm like, wait a second, that's not Jake. We're in a house now. This is our. We could be as loud as we want.
That is so funny.
But through this, I really learned, the apartment. It's so funny how and like after we moved out of the hotel, the apartment was it was like, oh, we don't, we got a place to sleep tonight. And it was like such a blessing. And then after 6 months of being there and dealing with like the neighbors and all, like hearing the neighbors like you're talking about, and this guy upstairs waking you up in the middle of the night and stuff, and then you're dealing with this guy who doesn't care, and he's screaming and yelling, and then we're being told because we meet in the afternoon on like a Saturday afternoon, we're disturbing people, even though like it's ridiculous. But I learned to not. One of the things I learned was to not despise God's provision,
Oh, amen, brother. Preach it.
because sometimes it's all the perspective. Like I said in the beginning, when we first moved, like, oh, we got a place to live, and then after a year, it was like, oh, I can't stand this place. I don't even want to be here. And sometimes we lose sight of what God has done for us, and then we start to despise the blessing. Our blessing becomes like a curse to us,
Wow.
and we can't let it get there. And you know what though? Too, we probably could have got out there earlier, and because there was other things that had come up, but we didn't take the step out like we did to get into the place we are now, into this house. And so sometimes, God's like, hey, I'm giving you this for this period of time. This is going to fill your needs. And sometimes we're there longer than what we should be, and then it starts to wear on us.
Mm.
And it's not his fault; it's our fault, because he's like, well, I brought this to you way back when at this point, but you didn't listen, so you're still here, and now
Yeah.
you're reaping. You're reaping what you sowed there. You're getting, that's the consequence of the action. So it's just, and another thing I learned is just, it's not always easy. It's not always glamorous. Always, it's not always practical. It doesn't always make sense, but just step out when God tells you to step out.
Wow.
That's that's what that's what I see throughout the scriptures. This stuff like some things like go do this or go do that. Well, that doesn't make sense. Why do you want me to do that? Well, I'm the one. He's the one calling the shots. He's got a plan. Your job is to do what he tells you to do, and never forget that. Because
Yeah.
we don't want to get um, we don't want to get to the point where we get proud and prideful, like, oh yes, I did this or I did that or whatever. We just got to do what he wants us to do.
Yeah.
And,
Amen, man. Wow,
and
that's really amazing.
yeah, and now it's like I'm in that situation, once again, because last year I was working at, I was teaching at a school. I was teaching violin at a school, and over the summer, yeah, it was like they went to like three different principals last year, and then they had a stand-in principal. So I was waiting all summer to, find out. Like they told me like, oh yeah, you're probably gonna get rehired. And then they got the new principal, and she decided to get a PE teacher instead of rehire me back or have me come back to teach. Um, so I was unemployed, and then I took a job which was I still don't understand it yet, and maybe I will in the future. I for 3 months, it was like in September, I got a job working at a car dealership, and there's a reason for it. Part of the reason is I think God wanted to show me something, how to deal with the people, a certain type of people, a certain type of like personality, because there's a lot of alpha male syndrome going on in a car dealership,
Yeah.
and a lot of interesting things. Um, but the only reason I got the job because it was because of him. Because when I went in for it, I was just like, well, I don't have anything else going on, and I did the 2 day. They had 2 day training class, and then I got recommended for hire by the trainer, and uh, I did an interview with like the general manager, or sales manager, whatever, and he was like 5 minutes, and he was ready to hire me, and then he talked about scheduling, and he was like, so Mondays and Saturdays are they're mandatory and blah blah blah. I was like, oh well, no one ever told me that. I don't work on Saturdays. And he's like, I like it's the Sabbath. I don't work Saturdays. He's like, oh well, that's mandatory. I'm sorry. I'm like, well, there's nothing you can do about it. And he's like, nope. I was like, well, there's nothing I can do about it. Thanks. And and then I left, and I was like, I was literally like, I don't. I was standing outside waiting for someone to pick me up, for my dad to pick me up, and I'm standing under the tree, and I'm like, man, God, I must look crazy to these people because that yeah, the average salesperson at that store makes like 70 grand a year,
Right.
and I'm like, wow, I must look crazy to these people. Turn up a job because one day I was like, I don't care, God, I'm just gonna follow you. I don't care about all that. I just want to do what you want me to do. And then the trainer, he was leaving, and then because I talked to him before I left, because we did the class, and he knew, because I've been studying like marketing and sales for the past, like self-studying for the past 2.5 years, and through the class, like he knew that like I knew what I was talking about, and he was so surprised I didn't get hired, and I told him why. And so I'm standing outside, and he's leaving, and he rolls up in front of me with his car. He's from like Brooklyn, New Jersey. He's like, "Hey, I'm so happy to have seen you because I went and talked to the general sales manager, and we were willing to work something out. If you work every Sunday, then you can have the job."
Wow.
And I was like, "Oh, all right, let's do it."
Sign me up. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh, man. That is
and
just so amazing.
so and so I took the job, and I worked it October, November, and part of December. And the only way I can describe it was the grace was not there for me to continue on.
Mm.
It was funny because it was like the second weekend of December or something. I spent the whole weekend. I just felt inside like it's time to go. I'm like, I haven't even been here that long, and I was crunching numbers and stuff, and it was like I'm working over 50 hours a week, and it's like you get a salary, like a small salary, but you make your money off of commissions. And we're going into the winter season, and there's no nobody wants to buy cars right now. It's the winter. It's the dead season, and I'm like looking at it, and I'm like bills are, and I'm like not making a lot of money. I'm just barely paying the bills and whatever, and I don't want to pull from savings to just have to pay the bills. And so like this whole weekend, I'm like mulling it over, and it wasn't like I was doing a bad job, because I sold. There was a guy that was there for 7 months, and in November he sold 7 cars. I sold 7 cars. There was a guy that was there for 3.5 years who sold 10 cars. I I sold 7. There was a guy he's been selling cars for 3.5 years, but he was new to the store. He only sold 5 cars in November. So I was like, I'm thinking like I'm not doing bad. It's just there's not enough traffic coming in. And then that weekend, that Monday morning, um, and also on top of it too, my manager's like, we already agreed upon like I'm not going to work Saturdays, and then they're telling me like, oh yeah, you're going to have to come in on Saturdays if it snows. I was like, we already agreed that I'm not working Saturdays. Like, well, it's too bad. And I'm just like, no. And so that this weekend I'm mulling it over, and so Monday morning comes, and they pulled the new guys into a meeting separately with all the managers. And so I'm thinking like, hey, I'm doing pretty good. It's only my second month, and I'm keeping pace with a lot of guys in the store. And they pull me in, and they're telling me, you're going to sell more cars, blah, blah, blah. You should do 11 or 12 this month, and blah, 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 and da-da-da. And then they fired my buddy that same morning. And what I mean by like the grace was not there for me to continue on
Right.
is that I've literally never like felt the way I felt that day in my whole life, like that morning. It was like, you need just to go. And I was like, God, I don't understand this, but there's a lot of things I haven't understood, as you can see from the story, that we just, it worked out anyways. So I just told that I went into the managers, and I told them like, guys, thank you for the opportunity, but I'm leaving. And I explained to them like about like the financial situation and everything else. And I was like, it's just time for me to go. And I was grateful for it, and I left on good terms. And now I'm unemployed. Like 3 weeks later, I was like, okay, God, I don't know what you got next, and I had several interviews lined up, and I only got to one of them, and I aced that one. I was supposed to go back for a second one, but ended up getting sick, not be able to make it. They didn't call me back, and there was another one I was supposed to go to, and this was like at marketing firms.
Uh-huh.
And it snowed that day, and I was like, well, I'll go slow, take it easy, and see if I could. I told them like it's snowing. They're like, oh yeah, whenever you get here, that's fine. I said okay. So I get to the end of my street, and I put the brakes on, and the ABS goes crazy, and the car keeps like I'm sliding on ice and the snow and whatever. I just keep going right into oncoming traffic, and like people like honking at me. I'm like, there's nothing I can do, guys. And so like I just turned around. I was like, okay, that's it. I'm going home. And yeah, so I'm still on a journey right now, and
Well,
I'm not worried. That honestly, that just like I've taken my own advice. I just surrender it all
yeah,
and just take it day by day.
I gotta say, man, your entire story is just one big testament to surrendering to God's will and trust that He has the best for you, and taking hints, taking hints when you get them, and listening
Yep.
to, listening to what God's telling you. I mean, that's really fascinating, man. And, I'm just so thankful for what God's doing in your life. And I got to say, like I said, this is probably the more untraditional conversation we have on this podcast, but it's certainly timely for me. And I'm trusting that God is going to, speak to some listeners out there, because believe it or not, man, there's a lot of profound things in your story. I think we're all going to join in prayer that your job situation turns out as good as your house situation did.
Yeah.
Those things are kind of integrally linked in a way. But that's fantastic. And all the while, you got a wonderful girlfriend named Caitlin who conned you into coming on a podcast that you've only heard a couple times. So that's exciting.
I didn't know how it was going to go either, but I kind of figured, like, if he asked me how my childhood went, then I knew exactly, like, I was like, I kind of know where this is going to go, because since I was 5 years old, it's just been one ongoing story.
No, I mean, and that's the crazy thing too. The fact that it's just been so consistently an issue,
Two decades later.
It's not all the time that an issue like that is so consistent throughout somebody's life. I mean, I'm sure it seems to have really developed a gratefulness and a really sweet relationship that you have with God and trusting and surrendering your life over. I mean, it seems like you're doing fine. I mean, are there times that it gets, life is tedious and long, and are there times that you kind of start to lose a little bit of that surrender that you've experienced, or are you just so sold over right now?
I don't see it as like losing surrender or being sold over. I realized this a while ago, and everything is about perspective.
Yeah.
And I see when I think about this, I look at it like if you like look at a maze, or like you're standing on the ground, and there's a wall in front of you. You don't know what's on the other side of the wall, and you don't know how you're going to get through the wall, get over the wall, get past it is the goal. And so you can either look at the wall and just be like, oh my God, oh, what's good? I need to get on the other side. There's something behind you that you need to get away from, whatever it might be. It's just, I need to get to the next thing. I'm like, I can be there in my flesh and just look at the situation. And then the way I see it, like the picture I have in my head, or I can be above it from God's view, looking at it with his wisdom and just being satisfied in him, and just saying, I don't know what's above it, or I don't know what's beyond this, but he knows. And just rest in that. And I find that I don't really get, like, I'm like, oh, how am I going to pay the bills? I left my job. Well, I guess I didn't have to leave the job. I could have stayed, but I did. So I'm like, well, how am I going to pay it? Well, I don't know. I'm not worried about it. It's because perspective, the perspective, it's all about the perspective. When you start to get in a state of worry or panic, and you're feeling down and this and that, then you need to go pray.
Yeah.
And you need to go get his perspective and get above. Like, I see it as just kind of like rising above whatever's in front of you, him just scooping you up and bringing you up to see. You might not even not like know what's beyond it, but just getting to there, just knowing like when people come to God, or there's like this misconception that everything's going to be easy or out there, or at least like that's how the world sees it. Like, oh, that guy believes in God, but he's going through this and that and the other thing, whatever. But it was never promised that it was going to be easy.
Yeah.
But the promise is that he's going to be with you. You don't have to worry. You don't have to be sad. You don't have to be depressed. You don't have to be any of those things. Because when you are those things, you're trusting in yourself more and what you see rather than what he sees.
Yeah.
And
yeah, it almost is like a weird, subtle, like hubris to be worried. I did a solo episode a while back about worry, and yeah, I mean it's really, to be worried or to be anxious, at least for any extended period of time. It's almost claiming responsibility for the future, which is not really your job. And it really is about that perspective, man. When it's like, you don't even need to be viewing your life through God's perspective, but just knowing that God has his perspective on it. Yeah, and trust that. It's almost like, if you're on the battlefield and you've got a sniper in the air or like air support coming in, you don't necessarily need to see the world through your air support. It's just knowing that they're up there and they've got their perspective covered is really reassuring. I don't know if I've ever even attempted to make a military metaphor on this podcast, but that's another record-setting activity on this particular episode. Well, that's beautiful, man. I really like that. And, it applies very much so to another thing we talk about on this podcast. And I don't know if you were warned about this one, but, when you start to wake up in the world and kind of see some of the sketchier things going on, such as the stuff we cover on Canary Cry Radio, that's another thing where you get activated, and from your own perspective, it doesn't look like there is any help. When you realize that world banks and power structures and governments and corruption and conspiracies and all these things are going on, in reality, the practicality is when it comes down to you and your perspective, as much research and as many podcasts as we listen to or host, we don't have God's perspective. And learning to really rely just on the fact that God sees it all and is not surprised by anything is one huge way to cope in our little human bodies here.
It's true.
Yeah. So, okay, we're at about an hour and 40 minutes, and so we got to spend a little bit of time on some of those for lack of a better word, some of the weirder, darker, scarier things going on in the world. Is that something you're privy to, or am I totally catching you by surprise?
Oh, I'm so scared.
Oh, so scary.
Oh, man.
So scary. I got to say, Caitlin had some pretty interesting things to say about you. All wonderful things about kind of your perspective and your relationship with God. And obviously you're a weirdo because you listen to Canary Cry Radio. So do you kind of have a viewpoint you want to express on that kind of stuff, or should I start asking the tough questions?
So, viewpoint on darker.
Yeah. So how did you? We all live on a spectrum on exactly what we believe in, and expect may be true or might be just sensational as far as conspiracy theories and world corruption and things like that. How did that start? How did you get interested in that kind of stuff?
I'm trying to stop myself from blurring something out. But anyway.
Well, you don't got to stop yourself unless it's that dirty word for Massachusetts.
No, because you were saying that, I was going to be like, because Katie says it all the time, 7-Eleven is a part-time job. Was a part-time job.
That is good.
I didn't want to derail you there.
No, that is good. I like that.
So, how did that start? It's a good question. Well, growing up, I always knew, like, growing up, a believer, a follower, and I know there's people that don't believe it, but when you experience it, then it's like no denying it, like the spiritual realm and everything, and seeing people like manifest demons and throw up and things and scream uncontrollably and flail around and whatever. I guess so. That's coming from that. That was kind of like normal.
Interesting.
Because it was like that. That's what my dad's a minister. That's what they were dealing with. They're helping people all the time, and so that's another reason why we're not. That's why I said like we're called to be in this area, because there's there's a darkness in this area, and it doesn't like my family, and we don't like it. Um, if I can go deeper into a story that like my dad's told me about, and I've experienced it. Um, there, I don't know. It's weird. It's like I think it's like a religious spirit, and it manifests itself in a form of a panther. And
Interesting.
one night, this is like before I was born, after my sister was born, like in the 91 maybe or something like that. My dad, it was in the same city we are now, but he was like down towards the bad section, which is pretty much the whole city, except for the area and a few other areas that I'm in. Uh, and there was this, he heard his name being called, and his bedroom, um, the way it was like the windows kind of like there was like a little alcove that kind of stuck out, so the wall wasn't flat, and it was just like windows, and their bed was right there. And he said he had the window open, and he heard something calling his name, and then he heard like it walking up the driveway and getting closer, and then it kind of like came next to the window, and he saw it was just like this black panther, and it was like snorting, like and kind of like growling, and he was like he was back then he was just like scared to death. He just didn't know what was going on really. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, like he knew like what it was, like what he was seeing, but he was just like he was just it was just like took him so by surprise. And that thing has been it's so weird. It's kind of weird talking about it because it's hard to describe because I've experienced it, but I know it's like it might not make sense or whatever. So, anyways, I'll just explain my experience with it. Oh no, there was one more thing too. The same thing that he saw that came to his window one night. They were at a church service. There was like an extra, I don't know, service that they had at night in a church somewhere, and there was like I don't know, half the church heard this thing and people felt it. It ran through the sanctuary across some of the rows, and people felt something like brush by it, and they heard this like growling go
Whoa.
right through the church. And my dad knew exactly what it was because it already like showed by his window.
Yeah.
And and it's like it keeps the people blind. And I remember one night because Katie and I we used to live a block from each other, and I forgot what it was. It was a lot of stuff going on that night, and I was walking over to her house to bring her back over to my house. And as I was walking, there was like a lot of spiritual stuff going on that night. I was walking by, I walked up the street, I was turning onto her street, and right then, right next to where I was taking a left, there was this long driveway that was very dark, and I was like, it was my hair was already standing up on the back of my neck because that night there was something going on, and I just didn't know what it was. And I hear this grunting come from the end of the driveway, and I was just like, I know what that is. And then so I got her and I walked back and I'm just like praying the whole way because it's just, and I walk back and then we get to the house and then mind you, this is like 10 o'clock at night or 11 or something. And across the street, there's a tree and this bird just starts screaming. And I never heard this type of bird in my entire life, just screaming in the middle of the night. And it was like the air was like still and everything. It was just weird that night. And that was like my experience with that thing, and it just not. I'm not entirely sure.
So
Why
you
that
had
happened.
experiences with some sort of supernatural entity that your father also experienced, and apparently a bunch of other people experienced. So that
Right,
the supernatural realm is no stranger.
right. And I mean, like in the house that we lived in, my grandmother's house, there was like she was like kind of like Catholic and with a mix of whatever else. So she had like statues and weird stuff in the house, and I would wake up as a kid and see things in my room, or I'd be in the basement. And I remember seeing faces just come around the corner and then disappear, and I would just like get freaked out. And I remember when I was the one night where I just decided like God, like I don't have anything to worry about. I woke up one night and my brother was sleeping. He Our beds were kind of like in an L shape, and he was sleeping, but I woke up because I felt something that was like weird. I just like woke up and I turn over and I see this thing standing in my room. It's like the outline of a person just like staring at me, and it was standing behind my standing fan, and um, and I just kind of like at that point I used to get freaked out and I just like freeze up in fear, and be like, oh, and just kind of like close my eyes and just hope it goes away, or pray a little bit. But I remember it was like 11 or 12, and then I turn over and I see it, and I was just like, no, I'm done being afraid. My God is bigger than you. And I turned my back to it and I went to sleep, which was like, like when you see something you're afraid of, you don't want to like, you don't want it to, you gotta like stare at it just to make sure it doesn't get any closer or something.
Right.
So to me, that was like the biggest thing I could do as like a statement of faith. So I just like turned over and turned my back to it, and I went to sleep. And it was funny because after that, I wouldn't wake up seeing things anymore or anything like that. So,
Yeah,
so
so
this,
so you've like I said, you've had experiences like that. I mean, is it kind of like the sleep paralysis thing where I mean, it didn't sound like you were scared stiff like a lot of times that comes with.
right. Yeah, no, not well, that last time, definitely not. I remember as a kid being like scared stiff, being like, just kind of like pull my covers up and kind of bunch up in my covers or call my mom or something. And
Right.
I'll go on the brighter side. One night, my brother, there was, I don't know what the heck it was, but he saw something on the other side of the bed. We had bunk beds in our room. This is before, this is probably like when I was like 8 or 9 or something,
Hmm.
and it like knocked something over in the room too, and he just started screaming. He was like, and like blood curdling screams. My dad ran in there, and he was like, "What's wrong?" My brother's just crying, and he's screaming, and so I like pulled him out of bed, and then finally calmed him down, told him. So my dad went and he prayed, and I remember him. He specifically prayed for like protection for what we would call angels, and protection. And the next morning, I woke up and I open my eyes, and next to my bed, I see this huge person in a white cloak, like the whitest white you could ever imagine, standing there. And I was on the bottom bunk, and now the top bunk was probably like almost 6 feet. Uh, because I remember my dad, he would stand next to it. No, it wasn't. It wasn't. It was probably like 5'9", 5'10", because it was just about as tall as my dad. And the hip of this thing that I saw standing there was about at the level of the top bunk.
Oh, holy smokes.
And I remember I was like, but I wasn't afraid. And I was like, and I rubbed my eyes and I looked again and it was gone. And I got up and I went downstairs and I told my mom, I was like, Mom, I think I just saw an angel. And I remember that, like, see, like, because a lot of times people experience the dark side,
Yeah.
but they don't experience, like, experiencing that was like that, it was like something else.
Yeah.
I wasn't afraid or anything. It was just peace.
Yeah,
It was just
that's a great point.
standing there. Um, and yeah, so it was it's been a lot of stuff. Like, I'm no stranger to any of that. Like, prayed for people and then they start freaking out, so you start rebuking demons and stuff. It's not some people get like freaked out. Like my parents, even know, like, church leaders with that stuff, that they would get freaked out, or like deacons or whatever in the churches, and they'll get freaked out over that, and they're just like, this is normal. This happens. This is part of the faith.
Yeah, I know.
Like
We're always so
the
surprised
apostles
by
dealt
it.
with it, and yeah, and I look at it like this is something that the apostles dealt with. This is something that Jesus dealt with, and excuse me, and so I'm like, it should be no stranger. I mean, I've had other things happen where I remember I was in college and I was going to they call it man group. It was like a men's group, like a men's Bible
Man
study, but
group.
yeah, they'll call it man group. And we're all group of us are walking, and and there was this guy, this like homeless dude, or he looked homeless, either that or he was just like drunk or whatever out of his mind. And he saw we start walking, and it was like as we're walking by like across the street, he started like yelling, and I swore I heard him because it sent to chill up my spine, and because my hometown is Fairhaven, and I heard so it, not so, it was like I heard like Fairhaven have mercy on me, or Fairhaven help me, or something. I like, and then he just started like yelling and screaming again, and I was like, I just like stopped and I looked, and everybody else just kind of kept walking, and I was like the only one that kind of like stopped, and I
Right.
was just like, what was that? Um, you know, stuff stuff like that. It's if people are experiencing that, and I feel like it's something that's not talked about enough, especially in like Bible studies and stuff,
Right.
and people get weird and
Yeah.
they get afraid. It's like if you're waking up and you see something in your room and you're afraid of it, you don't have to be. You have the authority. When Jesus, he said, "All I give you, all authority on heaven and on earth." You have the authority. You don't have to be afraid of it.
Yeah. Imagine that, right?
But its greatest tool is fear. And all it has to do is get you to forget that, and or believe that you can't walk in that, but you have access to that. And so there's nothing to fear.
Wow. Yeah. Amen,
That
brother. I mean,
yeah,
the biggest thing is that, you mentioned it a while back that most people, and, along with people who come on this show, we hear a lot of supernatural experiences. Um, but most of the time they are the negative. It seems like
right.
for some reason, a lot of people aren't, or haven't yet, really had the types of experiences with what we might call the good side. However, I will say, even in biblical accounts, even seeing angels or anything, having anything of heaven appear to you is pretty frightening. Everybody was pretty terrified every time that would happen. So maybe we just need help recognizing what's going on sometimes. Who
Yeah,
knows? I don't know.
right.
Yeah.
Uh, and what was I gonna say? It was on the tip of my tongue.
On the tip of my tongue.
Oh, and other things too that like that I've experienced anyways that you don't realize when you get that person that just seems to know how to push your buttons, and they just get on your nerves or whatever. Like know where that's coming from, because there's been plenty of times where I didn't have to say anything to them, but I just start praying against whatever the heck's going on in that
Mm.
person, and then they just stop. They just stop. They just. I remember there was one time this guy, and he wasn't really like being mean or like coming at me, but he was saying some stuff, and I was just like, that's that. And I recognized what was happening. So while he was talking, and it was like a little group of us, I just started praying in my heart, and rebuking that. And then all of a sudden, he just starts fumbling his words, and it's like he couldn't talk. He was talking perfectly fine, and I started praying. All of a sudden, he was just like, oh, and I was just like, and that's when I started to realize it's more than just not all the times, because you got the people that either don't believe in like the spiritual realm, or you got the people that everything's a demon or something like that. But
Right.
it's about recognizing what it is and knowing how to deal with it. And
Amen.
that's like that's the biggest thing.
There you go. That is the biggest thing. You know what, man? We're coming up on 2 hours now, and so I got a few more questions for
All
you,
right.
but I need you to tell me about these cats of yours. You need to share that with me.
All right. Funny story from yesterday. So I think Caitlin told you about how she found cats, right?
Yes.
Okay, because I'm sure she did. She tells like everybody. So one of the cats, we got one of those little cats that she found, and he just keeps. We have this like Persian mixed kitty cat, and she's got like a flat face, and she's small and she's super fast and agile, and he just won't leave her alone. He'll like pin her to the ground, and she'll be hissing and spitting at him and slapping him. He just won't stop. Yesterday, she was on the stairs, and he starts like, oh, I'm gonna start attacking her and playing where he thinks is playing anyways. And so she's on the stair step above her. He starts swatting her. She's like hissing at him, like, stop it, swatting him. And then he tries to like grab her and pull her down the stairs. So she gets on her hind legs, puts both her paws in the air, and then just like wham, just lets him have her like right in the upper body and the face. And he just goes flying and falling down the stairs. It was the funniest thing because it was just like she goes bam, he's just like thud, 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 just like down the stairs.
Roughhousers, they are.
Yeah, he because he's only like 4 months, 5 months, so he doesn't stop. He just runs around. He attacks your feet and stuff. And we got two black cats. One's like he's a big boy, and he's a cool cat. He's pretty chill. And then the other one, the other black cat. Her name's DJ, and she's like the princess. And she acts like my mom calls her the puppy dog, because like when my mom calls home, she knows my mom's the ringtone for my mom, so she'll go run to the phone and look at the phone, or like she'll hear the door shut on the car and she'll go run to the front door and wait for you there when you come in. So they're we got a weird bunch of cats.
Yeah, they're a playful bunch, it sounds like.
Yeah.
That's cute. Cute. Well, so there's still 3 or 4 now?
We got 4 now, yeah.
4 now, lucky.
They're like everywhere now, so.
Nice. You're getting taken over. The family is growing. Now,
yeah, right.
One thing that we always like to touch on at the end of the podcast is you know what? If we're gonna stay content and joyful in this life, we gotta make sure we're taking care of ourselves. Do you agree?
I agree.
You agree. So, what's your caloric intake look like? Are you juicing? You taking care of yourself, buddy? Are you pizza and jerky all the way? Like, I wish I could live like that.
I thought, like, when you said caloric, I was like, I don't do that calorie
Give me
count
your
stuff.
exact calorie count.
Yeah, right. What I do, so when I was like 14, 15, I was only like, at that time, like 14, I was like 5'4", 5'6", maybe.
Ah.
And I weighed 228 pounds.
Holy smokes.
Yeah. So I was, people look at me now, they're like, oh, this kid doesn't, wait till he gets older, he'll find out. Well, but I'm like, no, I'm the way I am right now. I'm not like an athlete, like chiseled athlete or something, but I've been able to maintain the same weight for like the past 6 years, or actually 9 years now. And what I do is, you gotta watch your sugar. Sugar, especially like,
that's the killer,
sickness,
man. Sugar's the killer.
Like 11 grams of sugar will suppress 25% of your immune system for 24 hours.
Oh, wow.
And the average American gets like over 50 grams of sugar a day. So if you're wondering why you're getting sick, that's why. Because the standard American diet is just full of sugar. Your body, I'm going off on a tangent, your body can defeat cancer by itself if you allow your immune system to not be suppressed. Anyways, I haven't had like a Coca-Cola in like 10 years.
Hey, there you go.
If that says anything.
That's impressive, man.
Because I was 15 and I just got fed up with hearing the doctor being like, he was telling me I was morbidly obese, and I'm like,
That's just the worst term ever.
yeah. And I was like, I go, he's like, you just sit on the couch all day? I was like, no, I was playing in a basketball league and stuff. And I was just, what happened would be like, I would eat and it would just out of habit after I'd eat, I go in the cabinet and get a snack and eat more. And it was just a habit. And
Right.
so I was like 15, I was like, I'm tired of being overweight. So I'm just going to lose weight. And that's why I decided in my head, and I stopped. I was like, how do I do that? Well, maybe I should stop drinking soda. So I stopped drinking soda. I stopped drinking like iced tea and stuff. And I would just drink water. And and then I was like, okay. And then all of a sudden I lost like 10 pounds.
There
And
you
then I lost
go.
like another 10 pounds. Like if I got to 200 pounds, I would be fine. And then I was like, I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna limit myself to one snack a day. I'll eat whatever I want at a meal. I'll eat till I'm full, but I'm gonna limit myself to one snack a day. And then I just kept losing weight until I got down to like 160. And when I was like 16, I lost almost 70 pounds in 1 year.
Holy
And
smokes.
yeah, and people think like, oh, he's just growing up, so the kids lose weight. But I was like deliberately doing things to
Yeah.
lose the weight,
Yeah, they
which people
weren't
don't
giving you your
understand.
credit.
Right. But people they didn't understand. And so I went from like so yeah, so like I was 16 and I lost almost 70 pounds. And then I was like super skinny boy, like lanky, and then I started getting my man body, as I call it. And I put on like 15 pounds of muscle, staying in like the 175, 180 range. I'm like 6'1" now, so um, that it's just snacking, like habit snacking, just snacking when you're not thinking about it is a big killer. You're just eating because you just eat.
Yeah,
That's
because you're bored.
once I realized that, yeah, I just started right when I was 15, 14, 15. I would just write down everything I ate, and I realized like, wow, I ate this, and I write down the time too. Ate this, and this, and I was just like, I should probably stop that.
It's amazing
And
how
yeah,
just writing down what you're eating and doing, really, really
right.
will. It's like
It's
externalizing it so you're able
yeah,
to see
visualizing
it.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
and
interesting.
yeah, and now I drink like ridiculous amounts of green tea every day, just
Oh,
because, not because, and just because I like it, not because of the health benefits,
yeah.
and like, and I go with the organic stuff because I realized I probably shouldn't be drinking just the amount of tea I drink. Probably shouldn't be regular tea because who knows what they spray on the leaves.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
true.
so
Once you get that amount up, it really starts
right,
adding up as far as the chemicals goes.
right. So because I'll drink like I'll get up and just it's just habit now. I'll drink at least 2 mugs in the morning of tea, like big mugs, um, green tea, and then at night I'll have like it depends on the night and what I'm doing, but I could have anywhere from like 2 to 7 at
Holy
nighttime.
smokes.
Yeah, it's a ridiculous like I said,
Hey man, every
and
man
I'll
needs
switch
a
it up sometimes,
vice.
but right,
Green tea there could definitely be a worse vice.
right,
Well, that's awesome, man. Yeah, yeah, I'm glad to hear that because a lot of times when you get to the morbidly obese category, there's two routes you can take. You can either be morbid about it, which is just a horrible word to connect to somebody's weight, but and that can become a habit and stay with you, and the the eating makes you feel bad and the feel bad makes you eat. Or
right,
you can do like you did, take action, make it happen.
yeah,
And in your case, looked like it was pretty simple. Didn't need to
right.
go on any crazy diet plans or anything. Just keep track of the
Well,
snacks, man. Track the
that well, that's
snacks.
that's the problem with diets. You come off them and then you gain it back. So when I say diet, I think of what you eat for to live.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
just like the actual sense of the word diet, what you're just intaking on a regular basis every day.
Yeah. There
Another
you go.
thing that I learned later on, like when I was like 18 and 19, you don't have to exercise for hours and hours a day.
Yep.
You could exercise for 15 minutes
Yeah,
a day.
Just gotta get moving a little bit.
And be able to run a 5K race.
Yeah, well, I've done it. Well, hey, I'm not gonna challenge you there, but I think I'll leave that to you to figure out.
I learned. No, I done it though, and I didn't do it on purpose. It's just
you just accidentally found yourself in a race.
Well,
hey, where you guys going? I'll come.
Well, literally, I woke up that morning, and then my brother's like, "We're gonna run the Father's Day race. You want to come?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he had been training with my friend for like months beforehand, and me, all I was doing was I learned about a certain way to exercise for 15 minutes because apparently it was like what the Japanese Olympic judo champions were doing, and the first 15 minutes of exercise, according to what I learned, is your most effective, is where your body responds the most.
Yeah.
So the concept was you hit it hard for 15 minutes basically, and it was only body weight exercises.
Yeah.
And you do as much as you can do in the 15 minutes. It was called the first one I did, what I originally learned, it was called 15-minute hell. And I just did that, and I would do it 3 or 4 times a week. And it would just out of just wanting to just get my heart rate going and, be able to climb a set of stairs without huffing and puffing or something. And then that day, like that year, my brother was going to run the 5K race, and they were like, "Are you going to do it?" I was like, "Yeah, I don't think so." But I've been doing this exercise routine on a regular basis. And so I woke up that morning and I was like, they're like, "Are you going to do it?" And I said, "No." And then before they left, they're like, "You're going to go?" And I was like, "All right, fine. I want to see if I can do it. So let's do it." And I ran the Father's Day race, which I surprised myself.
Hey, well, right on, man. Good for you.
Yeah, I never run that much. I never run that long in my entire life, just saying. But I don't like running.
No, it's not what I do for fun either. But hey, more power to all those people. So, well, right on, man. This has just been a very pleasant conversation. I'm so happy that we had a chance to get together. And like I said, it's a little unusual, but I enjoyed it. I got a whole lot out of it, and I know that everybody else did as well. So thank you very much for sharing.
I'm glad to hear that. Thank you for having me on.
You're welcome. And the power stayed on the whole time. That's nice.
Yeah, it actually has, huh?
All right.
I know just before we got on, the lights were flickering a little bit, but
yeah.
So.
Well, good for you. We're all praying for you over there. Hope you survive the coming ice age. And you'll have to keep us posted. Boots on the ground in the Genesis bomb storm.
The Genesis bomb storm.
All right, man. Well, this has been such a pleasure. And
yes,
listeners out there, stay warm. And Jeremy, you do so too, buddy.
Thank you. You too.
All right, you take it easy. Well, there you have it, everybody. There's Jeremy the real estate king. I mean, what a story, right? Oh, man. This episode in particular, a little bit different, but really showed me some things in my life. And I'm just so grateful to have had Jeremy on the show. And Caitlin and Jeremy over there in Massachusetts, hanging out with the superstorm, surviving the cold. Good luck, everybody. And hopefully by the time this airs, it's over and everybody survives. So, okay. Good job, East Coast, for staying tough. Okay, well, there you go, everybody. Make sure to head over to Facebook, like the page, The Joyspiracy Theory, and, leave a comment, say hello, interact. Let's do this. Let's say hi. You can hit me up on Facebook, too, Basil Rosewater. You can go over to patreon.com/The Joyspiracy Theory if you feel like donating, pledging a monthly amount to this show to keep it running, keep the lights on over here, just show your love. Feels all warm and fuzzy for everybody involved. It's good stuff. Give it a try. Okay, all right, good. You can head over to thejoyspiracytheory.com. On the right-hand side of the page, I've got a voicemail button. You can leave me a voicemail. It's super easy. It works on your phone, works on your tablet, works on your desktop computer if you got one of those microphone thingies. And it'll be really fun. You might even play it on the show here. Sing me a little song, give me a little message. It's good stuff. Head over to iTunes, leave a rating and a review on the iTunes machine. Help the iTunes robots find me. Also, just let a friend know. Let a friend know about the show. And you can just give your rating and review straight to your friend, Don't type it into iTunes. Go up to your friend and say, I give the Joyspiracy Theory 1 star, and my review is I went to the store to buy an avocado, and I opened it up and it was filled with worms. Yeah, that's a 1 star. 5 stars, like I went to the store, opened up the avocado, and got a bunch of money. Oh, man, yep. And, a review is just explaining how you found a bunch of money in an avocado at the store. And that's what listening to the Joyspiracy Theory is like. All right, everybody, come back next time. We're going to have something good for you. But until you do, go to the store and find a bunch of money. Okay. Take it easy.